Hello, everyone. I feel personally victimized by Pete Davidson.
Hey man, I'm not gonna hurt you.
I saw The Home, Pete Davidson's later horror movie brought to us from Miramax. Now, this is a movie, right, that is only showing at 9:30 p.m. in Australia. All right, there's only one session at like 3 village-owned theaters scattered over the state of Melbourne. So in order to see this movie, you have to go see it at like 9:30 at night. You're not going to be done till like 11:10, and it's just straight cheeks, guys. Pete Davidson is not the dude for the horror movie, and the thing is, I actually think he could be. Pete Davidson was good in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. He was good in that show Bupkis. For some reason, they keep giving him shows and movies where they're just his life again, you know? So The King of Staten Island was a fictionalized, he got a whole movie of a fictionalized story of his own life, but clearly like a one-to-one of his own life. And then he got a show called Bupkis where he plays himself. HBO, bloody Joe Pesci shows up. He keeps getting these insane projects, and the most insane one is The Home. What's going on? It's this 90-minute horror movie. It's R-rated, and I searched it up, and it had a straight 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I knew I was getting into some straight cinema cheeks. But guys, nothing could prepare me. I am a massive horror movie fan, and the setup here is actually kind of good. By the way, I will do spoiler free to an extent, but eventually I'll get into spoilers. I'll let you know, but I actually kind of encourage you to just go on this journey with me. I'm going to walk you through the movie because yes, all right, like I'm going to spoil the movie at a certain point, but like you're not going to see this. I'm telling you not to see this. It's that bad. Now, you could watch it as so bad it's good. Like, there's plenty of stuff there, but I'm just going to walk you through the movie for those of you who aren't going to see it. First off, terrible dialogue, right? It opens up and it establishes that Pete Davidson has like an adoptive brother. They're both adopted by some random parents, right? So they live in essentially not a foster home. They live in like a family home with adoptive parents, and these adoptive parents seemingly have a kink for like adopting kids. They have like 9 kids or something, and it's Pete Davidson and either his biological brother or an adoptive brother. I'm not exactly sure. I saw this like a week and a half ago, but regardless, they're brothers, all right? And then very quickly, the screenplay is just like, yeah, anyway, so Pete Davidson's still alive, but the brother died randomly. And you're like, okay, hard cuts to Pete Davidson spray painting graffiti, and now he gets arrested, all right? And then in that scene, the cop is like, you know, you just haven't been the same since your brother tragically died, all right? Like, you just haven't been the same. You're doing criminal activity. I don't know what's going to save you. And it's like, this is the type of like writing we're dealing with. So very quickly, in the first 5 minutes, in order to atone for his sins, he's sent off to a nursing home to take care of old folks. And straight away, things just aren't right in this nursing home, all right? Something's off. And Pete Davidson is just not concerned at all. He's meant to be. Like, the script clearly wants him to be like, oh my God, what's going on with these old people? Why is there a kooky guy over there smearing blood in the window? Why is there a floor where old people are just screaming? But like, it's Pete Davidson, so he's just sitting there going, that's his reaction throughout the whole movie, all right? He's engaging with these horrific ideas with the intensity of someone taking a shit. Like, he just doesn't care, all right? And that's most of the movie is Pete Davidson just walking around hallways being like, it's bizarre, guys. It's a bizarre movie. So essentially, what we find out throughout the movie is like, yeah, something isn't right with these old folks. One of them like jumps off a roof at one point and lands on spikes, weirdly, with some of the best practical gore effects I've seen since Midsommar, right? You know, Midsommar, the cliff dive, all right, and then the gore afterwards, how good that looks, how real that looks. That got an R rating here in Australia, by the way, just because of how good that impact injury detail was. And In the Home, which is full of terrible editing, terrible jump cuts, terrible music, terrible jump scares, it randomly has some of the best gore effects I've ever seen when this random old woman lands on some spikes and dies. And Pete Davidson, again, his reaction is just, and later on, Pete Davidson is talking to a character. He's like, that was Beverly. That was my favorite old woman here. And now she's gone. And you're like, what are we doing here, Pete? Why'd you even show up, man? Like, it actually looks like he's half asleep throughout this movie. This movie is full of some of the worst jump scares I've ever seen. There's this great moment where he opens a cupboard and like a random, you know, those like anatomy dolls, the ones without skin where it's all the muscle tendons. This random anatomy doll that you can already see, by the way, like it's already there, just goes, and then it does the whole and then Pete Davidson is like, oh, fuck. Like, it's so bad. He's so bad in this movie. And, like, you know what? I think he knows what movie he's in. All right. I think he knows it's a bad movie. But weirdly enough, all the dream sequences here, there will be these like trippy Ari Aster like dream sequences that he has, and they're good, right? Like the actual dream sequences are kind of interesting. But then Pete Davidson has his moment where he's in bed and he wakes up and he just goes, damn, that was. Like, it's just full of weird shit. We also find out at one point that the old people are like clapping cheeks. He opens like a room and there's like two old people in like kinky fetish masks. He's like, oh. All right, so spoilers now. I'm going to speed run the movie because I really need to talk about it. There is a plot development at a certain point that they just drop. And I'm like, I'm going to need more explanation for that. So the big reveal here is because there's all these old people killing themselves, there's a floor full of old people, right, that are being experimented on or tortured. Eventually we find out what's going on. Now that is after what I thought was actually a good moment, a good scare. There's this moment on a computer where someone's like Zoom calling him with like an AI distorted face. And it's quite creepy visually. And at a certain point, Pete Davidson turns around because he hears something. And the computer's in the background. He's not faced yet. So it's like the computer's here, Pete's facing this way. And on the computer, that AI thing is going, no, no, no. And he can't hear it. Kind of an eerie vibe. I don't know why it worked, but it did work. But aside from that, nothing good in this movie up until the end, which we will get to. But Pete Davidson, at a certain point, goes up to this floor. I forget how he realizes. He goes through a bunch of photos and basically realizes that his parents are involved in this ruse, and a bunch of the orderlies and nurses and doctors that work at the nursing home haven't aged in like 70 years. They're part of some cult or something where they've got, you know, they're not aging, all right? Like they're staying the same age for ages. And Pete Davidson goes, oh my God, they're draining the life force of these old people. You know, there'll be photos like The Shining, the end of The Shining, where it's a bunch of people in suits smiling at the camera, and then at the front there's a guy in a wheelchair that's clearly being drained of his life force. And then Pete Davidson looks at the photo and goes, oh my God, they're draining his life force. And you're like, come on, man. So anyways, that's what's going on here, right? Like these orderlies are like, yeah, draining the life and somehow. And then we find out how they do this. So with no explanation, the movie just goes, yeah, apparently behind people's eyeballs, if you just poke a syringe there, there's like this fluid that you can take that is essentially like the fountain of youth.
You know, you've got interesting eyes.
And like I turned to my fiance and I was like, that's not real, is it? That's not a thing, right? Like that's not real, right? And she goes, no, of course not. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. So I don't get why they didn't rewrite this movie and just say that when these kids get adopted, they are drugged something that grows this behind their eyeball. That would have like fixed that plot mechanic in a way that I could have made sense. And it's kind of more fucked up, right? Like you adopt kids and then you put this like stuff in them, you know, you make them take these tablets that grows this little goo in their eye, and then you take it from their eye. Anyways, so basically you find out that a bunch of these people in the old people's home were actually young people that then got their life force drained out, so they became old. Meanwhile, you know, these orderlies and stuff remain the same age. So that's what the evil people are doing. They are essentially taking from the eyeball, apparently this life force that all of us have, this fountain of youth that all of us have, thus aging the kids, and then they stay the same age. And then it dawns on you, you're like, oh, his brother's probably not dead. His brother's probably one of these old people. And Pete Davidson turns to the camera. He's like, that's my brother up there. And then he runs up. He's like, Jason, you're my brother. I'm your brother. You're my brother. They took you. They took you. They told me you were dead. They took your life force and made you old. They told me that you were dead, but you're not dead. And it's like, this is so clearly for the audience. And then the brother's just like, I'm like, why didn't you tell him before? What are we doing? Anyways, it leads to, out of nowhere, one of the best action scenes I've seen in a while. All right. So this movie sucked for literally 90% of it. And then right at the end of the movie, right, Pete Davidson's brother pokes a needle into all the other like children that were made old, or the old people in this special room. He like takes the life force from all of them, essentially killing them, right? Like they're done at that point, and injects it into a young Pete Davidson. So now Pete Davidson is on like super steroids, all right? Like super steroids. And he goes downstairs to a room full of the orderlies and all the evil people with like 2 axes, and just starts cutting everyone up, just murders everyone. And it's awesome. Why did the rest of the movie need to exist? Like, the rest of the movie was just so monumentally bad and stupid. And Pete Davidson's performance was so shit. And then right at the end, you get like a great 10-minute sequence. But the thing about this movie is, I actually think the idea is like, it's not the best, but it's all right. You know, I think there could have been a good horror movie where, okay, they're somehow, I think you should rewrite it and make it that it's a drug that grows this thing, so that way there's also an invasion of the body and an invasion of consent, but also I just think it stops people from going, well, that can't fucking happen. So just set that up that way. But regardless, because I just think it's too big of a leap for us to be like, okay, that thing that our body can't do can just do in this movie that is trying to be somewhat grounded. So I would have had it that it's some drug that needs to be grown in young people that can then be taken. That would have been fine for me. Substance coated, like here's the technology, done. But regardless, all right, I actually think there's a good movie idea here. The idea that someone's working at a nursing home and the old people are being taken advantage of, and then, there's an uprising and whatever. Like, all of that would have been fine. Even the brother tisk could have been fine if the dialogue wasn't so bad around it. But speaking of bad dialogue, there's a scene in the middle of this movie where Pete Davidson turns to someone and goes, "They're taking advantage of the old people. And that's so bad because no one listens to old people because they're already old." And on top of that, if they're mean to the old people, people don't care because the old people are going to die soon anyways. And that's why the old people are the most vulnerable people there are. And I'm like, who wrote this? Whose idea was it to get Pete Davidson to deliver this dialogue? Like, what are we doing? Anyways, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, please consider getting a membership to this channel. Links are in the description below. Every 2 weeks, I do a podcast talking about every single show and movie I've watched in that given fortnight, both new and old releases. So you get a lot of retro reviews, and it's the cost of a cup of coffee. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and have a lovely day.